Let's see. Here's a guy in his bedroom covering The Last Caress very poorly. But goddamn, he's feeling it. This is the equivalent of me trying to use a computer. God. My wife steps in and goes, stop. I got it. Like, I'll do it.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see,
Hey,
we're
twist
on,
around. Now look, here's a
92
house full of
FM
bees.
tonight. It feels like
You think the
nice
honey
cool
badger
little
cares?
bands
It doesn't
so
give a
far.
shit.
Listen, let's get
Else
one thing
is
straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Wow. Thanks for that, Bill. For actually giving a real answer to the question.
To stand up and proudly say, God bless America, God bless the Bill of Rights, and thank God for independence. I'm not ashamed to say I'm proud of the Bill of Rights. And I'm proud to admit on camera and on the internet that I will never talk to a police officer in any circumstance. With all due respect, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to
I think some apologies are in order.
That was sounding vaguely familiar for a second, but then the horns kicked in. I was like, I don't remember this song having horns, so I think you might have me completely stumped.
The horn is actually a saxophone,
Okay.
which should be the giveaway for that band. 90s alternative, like you would have probably seen him on Craig Kilborn or some late night show.
I can't remember
Bass
who.
player plays a 2-string bass.
Oh, God. All right, hit me.
Morphine. Yeah. One of my favorite bands from back then.
Yeah.
It's
The sax was throwing me off.
Yeah.
That's such a departure because they wrote Yakety Sax too, right? Back in the day.
Yes, exactly.
This is kind of more their darker material.
A little bit,
Yeah,
more on the melancholy side. That album was a blue album. But they they had that unique sound. Another band that made the sax not
Lame.
make you think of Kenny G. And the bass player only played a 2-string bass.
Uh-huh.
And he was a firm believer in you don't need more than 2 strings. Which
Was Butch Vig in Morphine? No, he was in Garbage. I think I'm thinking of Garbage, who's
Right.
like a big-time producer.
Okay.
He produced Nirvana's Nevermind. I gotta look that up.
So that guy died. The singer is the bass player, and he died super in his prime age, but it wasn't from drugs, which kind of is odd.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a total tragedy when he passed away. But yeah,
How did he die?
Some freak accident, brain. I don't know. I shouldn't guess.
Autoerotic asphyxiation.
I believe so. Actually, I think he tied himself to a tree and shot himself twice in the head with a shotgun.
Well, when you got dirt in the Clintons, it makes you depressed, and you tend to go that way. Butch Vig was in Garbage, not Morphine. I got those two bands mixed up.
Mark Sandman. How did he die? Let's ask. You think Sandman is 2 words or 1?
I'm going with 1.
You're right. He was actually 47. That's still in your prime. Not there yet. Heart attack. Yeah. He was vaccinated. I'm just kidding.
Beat me to the punch there.
Yeah.
So,
Back in
dude,
the 90s.
I woke up this morning still buzzing from our day yesterday, which is one of the best days that I've had in a long time. Because I always enjoy, we did a bunch of tactical training. I always enjoy shooting quite a bit. and just getting more familiar with, getting better at things.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And we were lucky enough to go to a place that we got to do some like legit tactical training. That was so it just got like more and more fun. And the way that the day was structured, you start out with all this like super basic things, and
then I had never sprinted with a weapon before.
Yes.
And obviously, you need to know how to do that. So that was awesome getting to do that.
It was cool. Yeah. She's like, yeah, I thought that too. Like right before, I was like,
You're not supposed to run with your gun. You
have
could
to-
fall
I
and
have to
shoot
think about
someone.
how to do this, or switching before going back and forth between your primary and secondary weapon.
Yeah.
Like intentionally, like not loading your mags with a bunch of rounds. So it's like you have to learn. It's. You brought up a good point on the way home. It's like it's kind of funny because we had learned so much. Like it was so technical. I was mentally exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this complete myth, one that I even bought into, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, yeah, it's you go out and fire off some rounds and you learn how to aim and then you call it good. It's
Right.
like it's not. It's an instrument. So it's like you had said, I think a lot of people think they're like, yeah, I have a gun, so therefore I know how to shoot a gun. And we said after that, yesterday, because everything was so technical, I felt like I was in school all day.
Totally.
I mean, we
Well,
essentially were.
We were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's kind of the same as
Learned more than we ever did in school, by the way.
yes, at least something useful is the metaphor we use. I was like, yeah, it's kind of like buying a guitar, hanging on your wall. Going like, yeah, I'm a guitar player. Like, you got to play like every day.
Yeah. Like you might know how to play one part of one song. Like it's exact same ratio of people. Number of people that own a guitar, let's say number of men that own a guitar in America is probably about the same as men that own guns.
Right.
Right? About 50%.
Yeah.
And the number of men who actually know how to play a song or a full like legit like actual song is very small compared to that, let alone have been in a band or something like that. And so we were taking that next step of really like thinking about how would you use this weapon in all these different scenarios.
Yeah.
What if this happened? What if that happened? What if you had to sprint? What if you ran out of ammo? What if your gun broke and you had to switch to your pistol and we didn't even get into like that's the other thing. Like when you learn jujitsu, you start to at first you're
Same
like,
kind
okay,
of
I
thing.
got this, and then you're like, oh my god, there's so much to learn. I'll
Right.
never learn all this my whole life.
Yeah.
That kept happening yesterday. It's like,
I was talking to a good friend of mine this morning who's been training forever. And because I had a couple questions because I'm trying to up my gear level with some tactical stuff. But I was asking him because he trains professionally down there all the time. He's all hooked up with the SEALs down there. I was like, yeah, dude, it's just, honestly, it's just like guitar or jujitsu or Muay Thai or, it's one of those things that the more you learn, the more you realize like there's so much to learn. It just like the chasm just keeps widening, with every like little improvement. But the best part about yesterday is I had to clean up my pistol game, which was horrific for a while. And to notice those like incremental improvements as you're doing it it just gives you like a charge. It's so exciting.
totally.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think another similarity to training in martial arts, like after 1 week of training, even though you don't know anything and you're obviously no good, you're better than most of the people you'll ever encounter. Assuming you're the same. Well, you're better at martial arts. You're probably better at fighting, assuming all things being equal.
Yeah.
As far as height and weight and
Yeah, and I think it's also it's to draw again the similarity to guns and martial arts and to music or anything worth doing. You know what I mean? That you want to get better at is you have that beginning stage where you're making these like improvements like quick because you're learning things so quick. It's like the same thing. You could draw a parallel to a kid. I watch my kid; he just learns things like so quickly.
Right.
And then as an adult, you just become dumber and dumber, and your processing just becomes slower and slower.
Yeah.
It's the there's this law of diminishing returns. It's like the more you advance in something, the slower, or I think the more you fixate on the fact that you're not getting better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's less of a wall with shooting
Yeah.
than there is with jujitsu.
Yeah.
right? As you get older in jiu-jitsu, it just gets so much easier to get hurt, so
Right.
much harder to get flexible and get stronger.
Right.
But with shooting, you're not really up against those physical restraints.
There's
as
less of a chance, unless something goes horrifically wrong, that you're going to miss work the next day.
Oh God,
when you're shooting.
Let's hope so. The difference between it, though, that and music is that you're thinking while you're training with firearms, like you're trying to get better than the person that you someday, God forbid, would have to go up against.
Right.
And they have a gun, but they've never trained with it.
Yeah.
Thank God you have, because it's not like with guitar, you go up against another guitarist and they're going to kill you if they beat you at a guitar solo.
Yeah,
And
unless you're in that
we're-
movie Crossroads, but
Right.
it's the only time lesser guitar skills have become fatal.
Ralph Macchio?
Ralph Macchio and Steve Vai
Nice.
was the devil.
Very nice.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very satisfying and interesting day. Just to have the thing I don't think about. I mean, we did some legit kind of physical training, but mentally, I was so fatigued at the end of the day because my brain was just like fully engaged 100% for a solid 7 to 8 hours of just fixating on these like little details. I think for people that aren't into firearms training, they don't realize like it's incredibly technical. And just think like, oh, what? Like you have, you just hold up the sights and you shoot it. It's like, it's so difficult to do. And then you get into the tactical training where you're like running around doing these things. And I didn't know fully like what we were getting into. I knew we were going shooting.
No,
I knew the place was legit. I knew the guy that was teaching us was legit. That's pretty much all I knew.
I didn't know that until like 2 days before.
I didn't know I definitely underestimated how legit this dude was when he kicked me in the ass and started yelling at me.
Yeah.
Change your mag, change your mag. I'm like, holy shit.
Get behind cover. Get down. They're shooting at you. It's so fun.
It was awesome because what a great way to learn because you are training for scenarios that, are going to be 10 times the stress of like what you're doing right now. But yeah, it clicked for me like when we got out of our trucks. It was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. So, hey, welcome, guys. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, what are the 4 rules? What are the 4 rules of shooting? I'm like, oh, like putting us on the spot.
Totally.
Like, the 4 rules of gun safety that you have to know.
Yeah.
If you don't know these, you shouldn't shoot. And we're like, it's like this.
Let's see.
Yeah. I mean,
Can I call my 4-year-old
I
real
know we're
quick?
talking about like my kid knows them down pat, and he goes, and I remember he made some comments. Oh, good, all right, good. He said something like, "I'd hate to like turn you guys around right now before we even started."
Yeah, he had to quickly measure us up. Like, do they really know what they're doing? Or because he had talked also, they were telling us at like lunchtime that they had done some other events up there and had a lot of people up there, and not everybody knew what we know, and we don't know that much, but someone shot the ground.
Yeah.
Walking around. Can you imagine being in that? Oh my God, I'd probably have to leave.
Yeah, I'm like, I am not cut out for this.
A ton of people up there and someone shoots the ground on accident.
I'm going to go to town, get you guys some sandwiches, have fun amongst yourselves. And then the next thing he did, he puts on his tactical belt and he goes, okay, first thing, here's the tourniquet, here's the first aid kit, here's the nearest hospital, here's what you do. And I started thinking like, what are we doing today? Like, it seems like pretty intense. And I loved it.
Yeah.
It was great, man.
It was intense.
I felt really lucky and really blessed to be there. And I learned so much, man. It was really nice.
Yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So you want to get into that? That stuff.
Let's do it. You want to say it?
Oh, yeah. Let me. Before I do that, let me use ye old soundboard here.
Good morning. Time to get up and
So
go to work.
So this is kind of a part 2 to the guest.
last podcast we had a guest on, who brought up a story after we stopped recording. Luckily, we started recording again because the story was pretty crazy.
Which was so funny because this was with my buddy Doug, who I've been friends with for over 20 years, one of my best friends. And they stayed with us, him and his wife, Em, stayed with us for the night. And the night before, he had told me that story, which I hadn't heard before. And I've known this dude forever. And I was like,
that's crazy.
Holy crap, dude. Like, I can't believe you haven't told me this before. He's like, yeah, it's like something I'm kind of not supposed to talk about. But enough time has passed. I think I can talk about it now. Then we do the podcast, have this good time. We end up turning it into a gun podcast, and we stop. And I'm in the bathroom peeing behind us. And Doug's like, yeah, you want to talk about that one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like, what was it? And he brought it up. And then after you heard it, you're staring at me like, how could you forget to bring that up?
How did we almost not do that? So I believe this is it right here. You didn't make any audio for it, did you?
No.
Okay. So we're just going to play the segment that we recorded. It's about 15 minutes long. And we'll chime in where we think it's worth chiming in, but I think we'll just kind of let it speak for itself for the most part. I will say that. So actually, let's see. Should we talk about the poll, our unofficial poll, now or after? Let's set it up because
Okay.
So basically, he's talking to us about the JFK assassination. And I personally have never really known a lot about it. And since that interview that we did with him, I've been obsessed with it and trying to just take in as much information as I can. And I realized that most of my knowledge about it came from the movie JFK by Oliver Stone.
Uh-huh.
And I remember that movie came out in 1991.
Right, came out in 91. And did you rewatch that?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
I still don't think I've seen it to this day.
You quote that movie.
Oh, really?
When you say back and to the left, back and to the left.
Is that from that movie?
Back and to the left. It's what's his face? Who's the actor?
I haven't seen the movie.
Yellowstone.
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Yeah. He's playing the DA from New Orleans, who is the only person to ever take anyone to trial over the JFK assassination.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Real guy. True story. And actually, that movie was based on 2 books. One is called Crossfire, and the other one was called On the Trail of Assassins.
Mm-hmm.
On the Trail of Assassins is a long book, and Crossfire is a short book. So I read Crossfire. Just didn't have time, and I don't read good. And so, anyways, he is talking in the trial about the bullet hitting Kennedy in the front of the head.
Right.
And that's when he says back and to the left. Back and to the left.
Interesting, because I stole that from Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks put that in his comedy routine. He tells this whole joke about going up to the book depository. He goes, yeah, it's incredibly realistic, mostly because Lee Harvey Oswald isn't there.
Right.
and then he goes back and to the left.
Nice.
Back and to the left.
That guy was Bill Hicks, man.
Bill Hicks was
the best.
Probably the greatest.
So where was I? That's where that's kind of where all this came from, was this interview that we did with Doug. And we did a poll. Let's talk about our results of our poll after.
Okay.
But, we did a unofficial poll. Matt and I texted just about everybody we could think of to get, and then we had a few other people do the same thing to get some opinions on who you think killed JFK. And what's interesting, I'm sorry, now I'm remembering why I brought that up. So I watched that movie, JFK, and that's where I got all of my kind of knowledge about JFK. But it was in 91, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time hearing how ridiculous that movie actually was, that Oliver Stone was just making stuff up and being...
Yeah.
But it turns out you go back and watch it and read these books and look at all of the evidence since then, like, no.
Right.
It was basically a documentary.
Yeah.
That movie.
And I'd also like to maybe add something that the reason why that we, at least, I don't know, you can speak for yourself, but when the reason I felt compelled to ask the question, start texting random friends, the most diverse group of people I could think of.
Yeah.
That still talk to me. And
it's not easy.
And just ask, like, who do you think killed JFK?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm not interested in who they think killed JFK. I'm interested in the psychology behind people that are willing to entertain like alternative ideas, I guess, or theories about what happened, and was mostly interested, and we'll get into this later, of the people that just wouldn't touch it. It's like
Yeah.
it's verboten. I was like, I'm not talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about this with you.
Right.
Which I thought was very creepy to me and a little disappointing.
It's also interesting how many people, well, we don't know this, but may have gotten their opinion from a movie that they'd seen, such as myself.
Right.
Because one of the answers that we got, I felt like correlated closely with the Irishman movie that came out, which are we sure that was the right movie? We looked into that, right?
Yeah, I
Where
think
they say
The Irishman
Jimmy
is
Hoffa.
based on Jimmy Hoffa.
Okay.
From what I believe.
Right. And so that's, people think the
It's
mob.
so goddamn long. I was like,
It wasn't good.
I was expecting Casino, and
Yeah. It's disappointing. All right. So I guess that's a good intro. Without further ado, here we'll.
So I was telling Matt.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Now, this is something the other tour guides won't tell you.
So I was telling Matt last night as we were barbecuing, what you call barbecuing here in California. What we call
Shots fired.
What we call grilling out.
I have no argument against you, sir.
Okay.
I've been to Texas with you many times.
Yeah.
Many a barbecue.
If there's not smoke going for at least like 4 hours, it's not a barbecue. So, my dad, I think all this is good to say. He's not going to hear the podcast. He would be upset if he knew I was telling you all this stuff. But my dad was the chief deputy of the Dallas Sheriff's Department during the Kennedy assassination. He witnessed the Kennedy assassination.
Say that again. He was the chief deputy?
Chief deputy, yeah.
Under the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, under Sheriff Decker.
In Dallas.
Yeah, so he was Sheriff Decker's, right-hand man. So...
And he witnessed the
assassination of
firsthand.
I was not born. I'm not that old.
You can't see we're using your finger quotes.
I see no finger quotes in the room.
No. My dad, helped lead the investigation for the Sheriff's Department.
Wow.
Of Dallas. He's in the Warren Commission reports.
If you said nothing else, I would be in amazement of that.
Yeah, so, and there's not much. Here's the scary thing. I'll just preface the whole thing, and this is why I don't know more than I do, is my dad, me and my brothers have been trying to get him to tell us stuff about the assassination as much as possible as he will, and he won't tell us.
Wow.
His stuff has slowly come out. He's in his 90s now.
Oh, shit.
So he was way too old to have me whenever he did.
Yeah.
But he will not tell us much about it. He's very tight-lipped about it, and we've tried to get him like, hey, write down what you know, put it in a safe deposit box. We won't open it until after you're dead. He's like, no, because I know it'll put your life in danger.
No shit.
Yeah, he's like, they'll never release what happened. He goes, it doesn't matter if they're telling you they're going to release what happened. They will never release everything that happened. So I'll just go through some of the stuff that he's told me before. Okay. This when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, my mom and dad had briefly got back together, and they were divorced. And we were in our house watching JFK, the movie JFK, Oliver Stone. Mm-hmm. My dad is pacing back and forth behind the couch while we're watching it. It's just like weird. I'm like,
this is like kind of near the time the movie came out.
Yeah, whenever it first was out, like at Blockbuster or whatever, we rented it. So he's pacing back and forth, and at a certain point, I've never heard my dad raise his voice. Never heard him cuss. Nothing. He goes to church every Sunday, like very religious.
Something my son will never say about me.
And so he all of a sudden just goes, "This is fucking bullshit," and like goes out of the house, slams the door, pills out of our cul-de-sac like in his car, and he's gone for like 2-3 hours.
Stop there for a sec.
Okay, I was gonna.
So
on that too.
Because this is where you and I we saw this differently. Now, I think I was benefiting from the fact that I had this conversation with him last night.
Uh-huh.
But you took him saying that as what?
Well, I don't know. It could be two things.
Right.
So at first I thought, okay, so he didn't like what they were saying in JFK, the movie, because it wasn't true. Mm-hmm. He knows the truth, and this is all fucking bullshit. meaning it's all lies about what actually happened.
Which is how I took it.
And he stormed out. But then I was thinking about it, and it's like he's been hearing lies about the JFK assassination his whole life. His name is in the Warren report.
Yeah.
It's all been lies. Why was all of a sudden, this the thing that caused this man who never said a curse word, was a totally, calm, never raised his voice,
right,
to cause him to say this is fucking bullshit, slam the table, peel out and leave in his car.
Right.
So I think it was so close to the truth that he was like, this is bullshit that this is happening because people are going to get hurt. This is going to not be good. People are going to suffer because of this truth coming out.
Gotcha.
Because that was his biggest fear with telling his family about it.
Yeah.
And he would be upset.
Or not telling them.
Well, his fear of telling them
right.
would be that they would be in danger.
Yeah.
Right? Of them knowing the truth would put them in danger.
Yeah.
So
that took me a while when you and I had talked about that. I was like, I don't understand. I had missed you because we talked on the phone about it.
I miss you too, dude. I was glad to be back in your presence.
We're going to take a short break here, folks. Come back in about 17 minutes. When you were saying that, I was like, I don't understand. How could you be missing his point? It seemed so obvious. I think in a roundabout way, you were saying kind of the same thing that I was. We were both driving at the same ends of it. Because I was seeing him, I think the median between what you're saying and I'm saying as a guy, it's just like, this is all fucking not, like, I saw what happened and no one's talking about like the truth of what actually happened. I saw it with my own eyes. I know what happened. I was part of the Warren Commission.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he seemed to be
just the overwhelming reality of the situation hit him so hard there.
Yeah.
And it broke him for a second.
Right.
And he had to leave the house.
Because it sounds like, and this is, I guess, where probably the miscommunication came from, is that I hadn't seen that movie. I just assumed, like, I'm guessing they just did a theatrical version of whatever the approved narrative was at that point. And then I talked to you afterwards, and it turns out that's not the case.
No, that's quite the opposite.
And then the more stuff that I did, like, the more I looked into it, just like you did, and I was like, but there's these levels above of like possibilities of like why this would have happened. Yeah. But it sounds like between us and Oliver Stone and Doug's dad and Doug, we're at least at the point where like it wasn't just Lee Harvey Oswald.
Imagine being Doug's dad and for all these years, having to keep inside that that not only was everything that was being said a lie, but on top of that, the country that he loved and served as a sheriff, that there was a military coup, military style anyways, a coup took place, the president was murdered, and he knew the truth and couldn't say anything about it.
Right.
And all that pressure, it was just had to be bottled up all those years. And now here he is watching, let's just assume for the sake of what I'm saying, that it was the exact truth of what had actually happened there.
Yeah.
And it's being like released to everybody. It must have just been like too much for him to handle.
It would get me, for sure.
3 hours.
Holy shit!
So then all of this stuff, and I'll send you a picture of this article. So then all this stuff, whenever that happened, it kind of revived the JFK stuff. So there was this Weekly World News type.
I think we kind of jumped the gun there for our audience because they don't know. Doug hadn't said yet that his dad had witnessed or had known the truth about what had happened. But yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, he tells us right now, like all of these facts and all this evidence of what actually happened that day from a firsthand perspective. Well, I guess secondhand from us, but still just insane.
Type publication, and I can't remember what it's called, maybe The Sun, that had Woody Harrelson and Woody Harrelson's dad like on the cover because that's one of the theories. Woody Harrelson's dad was the assassin. But in that article, it said, thanks to Deputy Sheriff with my dad's name, we may never know the truth. So it says he let the 3 hobos go. without taking any information on them. So that's like a real famous thing. There was the three men that were arrested by the railroad track, by the guy in the tower saw, they arrested them.
CIA.
So I didn't know about the hobos.
Yeah.
And so I went back, but they talk about it in JFK in the movie.
Oh, do they?
Uh-huh.
Find out anything on those hobos? Photographer from the Dallas Times Herald got some great shots of them. Never published. Can't say that comes as a surprise anymore. They took them to the sheriff's office, and they let them go. No record of them ever being questioned. Take a good look, Chief. Any of them look like the hobos you remember? These two look pretty young. Not a single frayed collar, a cuff, new haircuts, fresh shave, clean hands, new shoe leather. Well, who the hell are they then? Hi, Susie.
Hello.
Come on, sit
sorry
down.
I'm late.
And so they said, so thanks to the Dallas Sheriff's Department, and thanks to they named Doug's dad, specifically,
right?
They had to let him go, or that he screwed it up and let them go and didn't question him.
And so the Dallas Sheriff's Department. So I did some digging on this, and there's a guy named Corey Hughes who does a podcast called Day Zero, as well as a few other ones. But he came on to Charlie Robinson's Macroaggressions, and he just finished a book on JFK. We're not going to do all this right now because we need to keep going through this, but he did some deep digging on, he basically shows the receipts that those hobos were CIA agents.
Okay.
Because he goes, it's this, with the names. He's like,
okay,
it's this guy, this guy, this guy. These are their names. Mm-hmm. And then when everyone threw the Dallas Sheriff's Department under the bus is they, there was no notes, allegedly, no notes taken when they interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald.
I believe there's either no notes taken.
No, they were taken.
They were taken and then destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Is what had happened is when they, when the Dallas Sheriff's Department, you know what I mean? When they said, like, you just let these guys go, it's like the feds came in and said, like, we need everything you have on this. They're like, where's all your paperwork? We're like, where's the names and everything? Like, it was all taken from us. We did our due diligence. We did what we were supposed to do.
Right.
They came in here, took everything, and then they threw them under the bus. So like,
yes.
No, they just released them, didn't do any paperwork or anything, which is against all law enforcement protocol for a situation, especially when the president just got murdered.
If you want to sabotage the case, then do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because nothing is admissible in court then if you don't have this detailed notes,
no receipts,
tracking everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but in that article, it said, thanks to Deputy Sheriff with my dad's name, we may never know the truth. So it says he let the three hobos go without taking any information on them. Mm-hmm. So that's like a real famous thing. There was the three men that were arrested by the railroad track, by the guy in the tower saw, they arrested them. And then they just disappear. Nobody knows what happens to them. Nobody knows their name. There's no booking information, nothing. Well, my dad's the one that took those guys into custody.
Never heard of him.
He says the reason that there is no information in the reports about them is because the federal government came in instantly and just took everything. He's like, they came in and took all the files. Nothing. We don't have anything because they took it all.
Right.
So if that exists, the federal government has it. So that's a crazy thing. One time my stepmom was at the museum with my little brother, and they're looking through the cases. This is at the 6th floor museum. In the book depository, there's a museum downstairs, and it's.
I heard that because you can go and visit that.
Yeah,
and I heard it's crazy accurate with all the details. The most accurate detail being that. Lee Harvey Oswald's not up there. Recycle that joke.
So
that's right.
So they're in there looking at photos, and my little brother, when he's a little kid, is asking questions, and the guy comes over and he's like, "Who are you guys looking for?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm looking for my husband. Oh, who is he?" I tell him, like, "We've been trying to get hold of him. We have some questions for him." So they go into the office. This is the same thing. My stepmom has told me this, since then. They call on the landlines before cell phones. Mm-hmm. And she starts asking questions, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Where are you?" And she's like, "I'm at the museum, and they want to talk to you." And she said she's never been scared of anything my dad has told her before, but all of a sudden he's just like, "Put down the phone, don't answer another question, don't talk to anybody, just walk out, don't tell them anything about me."
Wow.
And she said she was, the tone of his voice, everything, she was so afraid she just like dropped the phone and walked out with my brother. And the guy's like, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" You know, like, that's how serious my dad takes this stuff.
Damn.
Wow. So he says the shot came from the grassy knoll. That's where he heard. That's actually what he told the Warren Report.
Back and to the left.
He actually said, you know, the shot came there, but I was later informed that it came from the book depository. I think that's what, you know, that's paraphrasing what he said in the Warren Report. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a lot of crazy stuff like that. I'm trying to think of.
That is wild.
It's pretty impressive that whoever pulled this off
got so many people to stay quiet is the first thing I always think.
Yes.
About. Yeah.
And we're able to perpetuate this, the story that we all know, which is that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman.
Yeah.
And do so much to keep that going this long after. Like, there's been so much that's come forward, and then it's still just going. Like, this narrative.
Okay.
You know, hold on.
Go.
Let me go first.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that recently, that when you're doing something wrong when you're working out, let's say, because I've been going to a physical therapist lately for some shoulder stuff, and he'll point out like, "Oh, everything's looking good, but you're doing this wrong. Correct this, and then everything will be, you know, in the right position. And then on this other exercise, correct that, and then and that's, I think, how people think of the JFK murder. Is that well, most normies.
How so?
Not you and me.
Yeah.
But most normies. Like, well, there were some things that were done wrong, but, you know, that just needs to be corrected, and we should do, you know, a little bit better job with our government should do a little bit better job. And that is not the case.
Right.
What is actually happening is our country is being stolen from us. There may not be another thing that you could point to that is so significant. Maybe the creature from Jekyll Island makes a better argument for this, but the assassination of a democratically elected president who then everything that he was going to do got undone and did the opposite. I mean, is there any greater like example of the wool being completely pulled over our eyes or the rug pulled out from under the American people than that? It's not like we need to tweak a few things and fix some form here. The whole fucking system was corrupted, and there was a coup perpetrated on the American people at that point.
You are providing such a great segue, because right when Doug was talking about that, these are the thoughts that started like entering my mind. Is I started thinking about that. What I gravitated, like, because we've been thinking about this. We did this interview last weekend, so you and I have been kind of marinating on it all weekend. All week, rather. And what stood out to me is what usually happens is the psychology behind the people that refuse to even entertain that some of these things might be true. And I believe that they are true. That is wildly fascinating to me. And the more I thought about it, it kind of hit me this morning a little bit, to be honest with you, is that it all goes back to the religion of statism. Because what we're talking about, it's like, so if these things, so we have these, just like 9/11, let's just say the narrative, let's just say it's true hypothetically for now. There's a lot of unanswered questions, like explain this, explain this, explain that they were warned before 9/11 that the planes were going to hit, that the Patriot Act was written way before.
Questions that we will be asking, by the way, next weekend when we do our 9/11 episode.
That jet fuel melts steel beams, but not passports for some reason. And you get this aggressive pushback, and it's always surprising to me, like the vitriol you get just by like bringing this up as a conversation to some people, and you realize like, oh, I'm making fun of your God. I'm poking fun of your religion. I'm poking holes in the foundation of your basically your religious fundamentalism.
Yeah.
And because when you view the state as your religion, which so many people around us do unknowingly,
they don't realize they're doing it.
Right. they've never thought about before.
They haven't thought about it, but the same
no internal dialogue.
if you are a devout Catholic, let's say, and maybe it's in like the 1600s, a time when it was everything. Right. Today it's not the same, and somebody tried to make you doubt that. The sheer terror of that not being true would overwhelm you.
Yeah,
right.
It shatter your entire world.
Yes, and that's what's happening with people when you question.
That's what I was driving at.
What's going on with
for sure.
the JFK assassination? It's like you have to come to terms with the fact that everything that you thought was true everything that you thought was sacred. Right. Is not sacred. The people that told you to trust them, you cannot trust anymore.
It's what drives me nuts. Is it's this same fucking template every fucking time. It's the fucking JFK, and it's going to Iraq, and it's going to Syria, and it's going to Yemen. It's the fucking Nord Stream pipeline. It's like there's a very easy fucking math that you can do, right? Cui bono? Who benefits? Most likely they did it. Follow the money. I don't know if you don't understand Latin. That's the only Latin phrase I know, by the way. Okay. Like, follow the money. Who would benefit the most by this thing? And you look at, like, who wanted JFK dead? The CIA and the American government, right? And we can get into that.
We will.
But it's you go into, like, Putin blew up his one piece of leverage over Eastern Europe, right, as a false flag. Does that fucking make sense to you? Well, no, that's what they're saying. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what they're saying. That's fine. But you believe it because you're a fucking moron and you have no internal fucking dialogue and you don't critically think about anything. Like, you are unwilling, you're input only. It's like, dude, well, it's where I agree with Yuval Harari. You're a fucking useless eater. Like, you don't, like, do some goddamn thinking for yourself. Please.
I hope that they do, and they don't take offense to you just calling them useless, because it's like telling these people that were Catholics in the 1600s that they have to give up their religion. It's terrifying.
Other than that, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on this.
All right, where were we?
Okay,
part of us just keeps going,
and I mean, even like, Trump, which I'm not left
Here
or
we
right.
go.
I'm not. I'm anti-state. I'm anti.
You're on the wrong podcast, brother. We are Republicans through and through.
And so, like, I think Trump was going to release all the files, and like he extended the time.
He said he would,
and then he lied,
and then he says he's going to this time.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure,
okay.
you are. Don't hold your breath.
He also banned bump stocks, which set a precedent for them to ban everything.
Don't get us started on how much we hate.
So, what's interesting to me, though, is that, to go back to the question that you were bringing up, is that, like, how, I mean, this is a psyop of, the magnitude is insane of, like, the amount of people involved, the amount of people, like, you have your grilling your dad for questions.
He won't talk.
Like, no, I'm not going to talk about
it. The fact that he won't talk is incredible.
Yeah, he says it will put our lives in danger.
But what's insane to me is that when we find out about these, we can call them false flags or psyops or whatever they are, is that when there's like a second stage of the process, which is what I'm most interested in, because I don't believe, like, I fully believe there's just complete fuckery. Our CIA has been murdering democratically elected leaders all over the world for,
why would they not do our own?
For over a century, actually.
Not here.
And so when you see about this, when Tucker Carlson comes out with it, for example, you're like, I'm glad to see it on a major media platform like this, but that's kind of what I already thought, anyway. But the second stage of that psyop, where we can get everyone in the world, the rest of the population, to just kind of shrug and go along with it, and we were talking about this morning. Well, is it obvious to you that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious he was murdered, and everyone just kind of shrugged and like, well, what are you going to do? Moving on.
Let's just hide his
that's the second stage of the psyop. Yeah. That is so fascinating to me.
The exact same thing is going to happen when it eventually comes out what actually happened to JFK. People are going to shrug and just move.
Yeah. Or everybody involved be dead. So who are you going to prosecute?
Or even go back to the left versus right thing. Is we had half, because remember we talked about this before. We had half the population saying, like, who said that? Tucker Carlson? Well, CIA definitely didn't kill JFK then.
Yeah.
It was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Okay. Has anyone reached out to you guys? Like,
I want this explained to me. What I was talking about before is the people that just have the immediate reaction to block this part of life out, that the possibility that the CIA murdered JFK. Like I I'm not being snarky. I'm not trying to be a dick. I don't understand the people, and when you bring it up, like they get angry with you.
Well, we'll talk about it when we talk about the poll.
Okay.
Because there's people take into account who the question is coming from, and that kind of colors their response.
Yeah.
Right. And we were asking the question, and they know who we are and what we stand for or whatever, and I think that colored their response.
Right.
But it goes back to the religion thing. You know, you can't have any chinks in the armor, or else dents in the armor, weak points, because as soon as you do, then there's an opening.
I take out all the racism in post.
Good. Okay. There's an opening for everything just to fall apart.
Right.
And I think that's it. It's that simple. It's so much easier to be stubborn. And I get it. For a lot of people, like, the world is overwhelming right now.
Right.
And you introduce something else that's just going to make them question reality. Like, you and I suffer sometimes. I've actually had people question me, like, how do you stay healthy, like, mentally, doing all the research that you do for the podcast?
Do I look mentally healthy to you? Have you listened to the podcast?
I think people suffer. You know, it's really, you're asking a lot for people to completely change their faith. And you do have to cut them some degree of slack, I think.
I had a long conversation.
People come around. Not everyone is going to be this way forever. People do come around.
It's a balance. There's a tight rope. You gotta, this is why I'm lucky enough to spend so much time, the bulk of my life outdoors, where I can just like marinate on these things and think about them and flush out ideas, the internal dialogue, just like having these conversations. But then I always, at the end of the day, I always tell myself, like, you have an obligation when you walk into your house with your family to be happy and be pleasant. You know what I mean? So work this out now, like while you're shooting your bow or shooting guns or out on a run or, whatever it is, working.
Drinking yourself into an oblivion.
Yes, sitting alone in a dive bar. But I would much rather, the awareness is so valuable to me, and it's so much more interesting. And we've had these conversations where I watched you and another friend debate whether gravity existed on my front porch, and it went on for close to an hour. And I got to be honest, I was like, they're both making pretty good cases. I was like, either way,
it is not true.
Either way, this is one of the more interesting conversations I've ever heard. And then you leave here, and you go out into the world. And this is what I was talking about my friend earlier today. And someone says, did you hear, they're going to indict Trump? I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, I can't walk out of this conversation into this fucking, like, trivial drivel that means nothing.
Gold jacket, green jacket, who gives a shit? Dude, I actually watched Happy Gilmore last night.
Oh, really?
Like half of it as I fell asleep.
Man, when your wife's out of town, you do something.
I get crazy. You guys like Tucker Carlson or?
No, I mean it's
weird. So I just asked him. Let me back that up just a hair here.
Tucker Carlson? Well, CIA definitely didn't kill JFK then. Yeah. It was Lee Harvey Oswald.
Has anyone reached out to you guys like Tucker Carlson or?
No, I mean it's weird because
your story is worthy of
what's
being
weird
on a national.
What's weird is like whenever my dad, like whenever that newspaper thing happened, and I'll send you a picture of that article for the that implicated my dad as part of the assassination plot or whatever. Right. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. It was a 30-second. It was a 30-second degree Mason. So,
shit, dude, you should have led with that. Obviously.
Yeah, he was Scottish.
Back some layers.
He was like the Scottish Right Shriner guy, So, but where was I going with that? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the article. Whenever it came out, we had lawyers reaching out to us like, "Oh, you could get millions. Like you could get millions. Like they just implicated your dad in the in the murder of JFK. Like you can sue them." My dad was like, "No, hang up on them. Don't talk to them. I don't want anything from this. Like, I mean, my dad was scared.
Yeah.
And that's you know, lawyers saying you can get millions. And he's like, nope.
Yeah.
You know.
Millions is a lot, actually, because
Yeah.
I've been I've won or settled lawsuits before for very little money, and I almost died for
Yeah.
the reason that I settled the lawsuit,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that much money.
Yeah.
Millions in a lawsuit is nothing to
And
your head
and
out.
so this will be the last thing I tell you about the story is that whenever
How funny it would be if we just cut it right there. Sorry, guys. That was actually too intense. Like, we can't share it with you.
I think that's a pretty decent point that he's making right now. That they were offered millions of dollars. This would be back in the 90s, and they still turned it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Out of fear.
Because if his dad was like making this up to be mysterious and everything, I mean, end of the day, like, what's your priority?
If the CIA wants you to seem like you were involved, then you better make it seem like you were involved.
Right.
Or you're done.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Psych.
what other part was it? Oh yeah, whenever they were going to move Lee Harvey Oswald. So there's pictures of my dad. My dad actually. No. Whenever he got killed.
Before he was killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my dad ended up being one of Jack Ruby's personal bodyguards during the trial. So like all the newspapers of Jack Ruby going to and from the courthouse, my dad is with him. He's always standing with him with Jack Ruby. But whenever they were trying to get ready to move, so the way our justice system works is police arrest you, but only a sheriff can. They're the ones that actually book you. So that's why the sheriffs run the county jails, all that, because they're elected officials. They're the ones that actually arrest you, or that actually book you. So they're getting ready to move Lee Harvey Oswald from the jail to the county, to the sheriff's department for booking, and that's when he got shot. So my dad and Sheriff Decker are trying to make arrangements to move him. And that's when the Dallas police chief is like, we're taking him right out through the public. We're going to let anybody in. We're not going to do anything. And they're like, you can't do that. Like, he is going to get killed. Like, we can't do a public walk. Like, so they're bringing they said they brought an armored truck to move him in because they were worried, that they weren't going to, get him to the jail alive.
Yeah, sure.
Or to the county jail alive.
Wild theory.
So, yeah. And they had already warned him of this. They warned the Dallas police chief, and he's like, no, I am doing this. This is what we are doing. Yeah. And he said they argued back and forth about it. And so they were going to walk him out and go up this ramp, but the big truck couldn't fit into downstairs, so they had to walk him like pretty far. Yeah. And that's when he got shot. But he's like, we literally told him, you cannot do this, that this is going to end bad. Yeah. And that's how it ended. So the way my dad tells it is, why would someone ever do this? This is not protocol. This is someone who's being accused of killing the president of the United States, and you're just
beloved president.
Yeah, and like while they
Donald Trump, they could have just like let him walk on his own.
Yeah, and then
walk down to the courthouse, 3 blocks there, right?
And then like while he was in custody of the police, they were like walking him back and forth in front of the reporters and the public, like from his cell, from the cell to the
like fair shooting galleries.
Yeah, like from the cell to the interrogation room.
This T-shirt with this Target symbol.
Yeah, so like I guess there were people like yelling at him and stuff while he was walking back and forth from interrogation to his cell, interrogation to cell.
Wow,
like it was
in his mind.
And so my dad was just like, it makes zero sense.
Yeah,
like it makes zero sense. But my dad definitely said the shot he heard came from the grassy knoll.
What a trip. What a trip.
Yep.
So, let's look at the results of our poll.
Okay.
So we asked.
So just to reset this up again, when we talked to Doug, and that spurred the conversation, and I like to go deep on some spoiler alerts, as we call them. I was like, the JFK, there's just so many people that have done it so much better because it's been it's like one of the OG conspiracy theories.
It's mainstream now.
Right. Yeah, right.
I mean, the truth is more mainstream than the lie, I would say.
Yeah. And so
That's going to make a difference. No one cares.
yeah, and I've just never really. I kind of run this. I like looking at historical patterns because they play out over and over in the same way. So, but I'm more interested in like what's going on like right now. Mm-hmm. So I've never done like huge deep dives on the JFK thing. Now, after hearing that from Doug, I did do like a bunch of research, and so after that, point being, like, wonder what I always feel like that we come up with things that end up being true, but when we bring them up, 6 months beforehand, that you get people like rolling their eyes and kind of like, oh, God, here you go again. You're like, yeah, you see that thing was true. Vaccines only has a 12% efficacy rate, and it's not safe. And now we're saying like, you see these heart attacks and clots. Like, are you looking at these excess death rates at all? You know what I mean? That's what's coming down the road. I mean, it's already happening now, but those same normie people will be like, well, the climate's changing, and this is what happens. So, point being is like when you talk about the JFK stuff, is you start diving into like all these like what alternative kind of theories of what would go on.
Yeah.
And the more you look into it, there's a lot of like very like irrefutable facts that you see.
Yes.
And so the first thing that we decided to do is to reach out to just our social circle, our extended social circle. Like,
I
want to know, like,
obviously, if we asked our closest friends, they would probably say the same thing that we would say. So we made an effort to reach out to
all four of us,
people that we hadn't talked to in a while, or family members, or people that aren't aligned with us on. In fact, I racked my brain more to try to think of who I could possibly reach out to that
me
doesn't
too.
think like me.
Yeah.
So we got kind of a, I know it's not a scientific poll, but still a little bit more balanced kind of results.
It's our version of an aggregate poll of our social circle. The question being, who do you think killed JFK? It's like, I don't want an explanation. I'm not gonna like argue with you. Like, I just like off the top of your head, like, who do you think killed JFK?
Right.
All right. So how are we looking?
Are you ready for the results?
Yes.
Okay, and your results are not included in these numbers, but I think they probably reflected the same number. So out of the 27 people that were asked, 17 and a half answered the CIA or the government.
Okay.
Which is what you and I obviously both think.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's the
I'm one level
there?
above the CIA. Because I think the CIA got marching orders from someone else, but go on.
Okay, we'll get into that later. So 65% of respondents said the CIA.
Okay.
Then we got Lee Harvey Oswald, second place.
Really?
With 3 votes.
Interesting.
Yes. And I respect someone that answers Lee Harvey Oswald because
they're just blissfully,
they're just like
sleepwalking through life.
Yeah, I'm just going with the middle of the road conservative answer on this one.
I'll take that shot. Free donut. That sounds good to me.
We got plenty of people who avoided the question altogether. At least these people answered.
Which is way more interesting.
Totally.
I have more respect for the person that goes, nah, I think Lee Harvey Oswald did it.
Yeah. So let's see. So that was number 2. Number 3, with 2.5 votes, we got Jimmy Hoffa and the Mob.
That was one. Okay. What I believe, the Jimmy Hoffa thing is kind of new. And I think I have seen that movie. Who knows?
Whatever.
But the CIA and the mob were almost pretty synchronous back in the day. That stemmed from Cuba. And the CIA and the mob started, like, they kind of integrated their networks working into Cuba. And after Cuba, we get into the JFK assassination. So I think there's quite a bit of overlap between. Now, Jimmy Hoffa was kind of a new one to me because you texted that to me. And I was like, Jimmy Hoffa? Like, that's.
Well, the Kennedys were pissing off the mob. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Right? Bobby Kennedy had the Commission on Organized Crime.
Yeah.
In fact, they had a meeting, I guess, the morning before he was assassinated.
Yeah.
And
this is the perfect illustration of, we talked about, this might have been even like a year ago when we talk about the notion of the deep state. Like,
Right.
what is a deep state? It's something that you guys are fixated on red team versus blue team, Biden, Trump, fucking Bush, Obama, whatever.
Right.
There's this level above of the people that actually make these decisions.
And
that's what the deep state is.
I think when we say that and people hear it, a lot of times they think, oh, you mean like it's this organization called Deep State Org, and they have badges that say Deep State on them. It's like, no, it's just the unelected people who are actually doing things, terrible things, mostly.
We're running
a mob
deep state pledge drive again this year, and if you call it now,
exactly. Would you like to join the deep state? Get your deep state windbreaker. So then we get into basically the people that were skirting the question.
Yes,
and this doesn't include people who didn't answer, by the way, because if you didn't answer, maybe you just didn't get my text, so I couldn't include those. My mom didn't answer. At all.
Okay.
Like, she just didn't respond.
I'm including the people that didn't respond and who's skirting the question because it's people that usually get back to me right away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't, and it's hard to know if Jake did either. So I got 1 vote for Trump.
Hard to do the math on that timeline. Okay, but
I think it's possible.
Is it?
I believe he was alive in 1963.
Yeah.
Obama, 1 vote.
Okay.
That one's tougher.
Okay.
And I got 1 Hillary Clinton.
I got 1 Hillary myself.
Oh, maybe I have that from you, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, no, this is Hillary Clinton's mom. And then 1 just straight up skirting the question by saying there are hungry children in America.
Bless your soul. Dude. The people that do things like this, when you want to talk about ideas, I was like, I'm intellectually curious. I'm serious about this. Like, what do you think about this? Who killed JFK? I don't know. If you had to come up with someone, like, I don't. They refuse to answer the question.
Oh, I didn't put it in here, but I got 2 gunman responses.
I got 1 gunman responses.
Yeah. A gunman
response.
Which is not true. I mean, how could you 1 gunman? Really? A gunman? Come on.
Back and to the left. Back and to the left. I had the vast majority of my responses were the CIA. I got 1 Hillary. I got 3 skirting the questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Even my mom just wrote back CIA.
Oh, I know. I some people surprised me with how quickly they just wrote CIA.
Yeah.
1 word answer. CIA.
But then, like, someone my age goes like, I refuse. I'm not gonna talk about this with you. Like, this is a wild conspiracy theory. And that was more interesting. I'm more interested in that psychology than who actually killed JFK, which we know which I think I know who killed JFK. I mean, I have my best guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That is interesting. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that had someone besides you or me asked that same person that same question, they probably would have given a response.
Yeah.
An answer would have come up. But because they just think like, oh, what are you guys angling at? What's your motive here?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give in to that, whatever you're trying to do. I'm not going to play along.
I'm a 0 out of 40. I'm a 0.
Right. Referencing the
conspiracy
theories that we had.
Okay. Now we do the fun part to wrap it up.
Why they killed him?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your guess?
I tend to agree with the book Crossfire that was what Oliver Stone sourced for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So can I just play the...
Sure.
I've shortened this if it sounds at all clunky. It's because I edited it, but just for time. I didn't change anything that he said. But here are the 75 reasons that this guy thinks JFK was murdered. It's not that many, actually, but... I think you and I, when we talked about it, we both agreed that there was more than one reason.
I didn't at first, and then after I talked to you, I'm like, yeah, I'd give that to you because...
Well, one great thing about it is that, like we were saying about the deep state, there is no deepstate.org.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's great if you're in the business of business and the president's in your way, but you're the only one who is bothered by his policies and he gets killed, it's pretty obvious who did it.
Right.
But if everyone's pissed off at him, and no one can actually be blamed, and the only person that can actually be blamed is the person that pulled the trigger, because so many different groups were involved and nobody knows who's in charge and everyone's just doing what their higher-ups told them to do, it makes it a lot easier to get away with it. And speaking of getting away with it, actually, one of the best responses I got to that poll was from a person who hopefully will be on the podcast next week.
Mm-hmm.
They said it was a really long response, but they essentially said, like, how is it possible that it's somewhere between, yes, it was a CIA plot or, and it was crazy people. Like, he's not denying that there was a conspiracy, but he doesn't believe necessarily that it was like the CIA who got together and said, let's do this. Right. And which it kind of makes sense to me, because I don't think it was just one group either. And we'll get into that when we talk about all the reasons why I think he was killed. But that being said, I totally agree with his objections, which were mainly around how do you get so many people to keep a secret and not make any mistakes? Humans aren't good at doing that, right? Even, I mean, look at the elites that we have running things right now. They suck at everything, right? And when you look at what happened with the JFK murder, they did make a lot of mistakes. They didn't keep secrets.
Yeah.
And they still were able to squash all that stuff when it came up. I mean, the magic bullet that ended up on a gurney, not even JFK's gurney, a gurney in the hospital, in pristine form, and yet had bounced all around in that car, made 7 wounds, left fragments of bullet in Senator Connolly, which don't happen to be missing from the actual bullet. They fucked up.
Yeah.
That's a fuck up.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
And when you look at those simple facts, is to go back to Charlie Robinson brought up a good point. He goes, you know, if my wife was out of town and she comes home and I'm doing something nefarious, and she goes, "What'd you do Saturday?" And I go like, "I went to Corey's Burgers and had dinner with Tim, and then me and Tim went and saw a movie, and after the movie, we went and had a drink here, and the next morning we played golf, blah blah blah." And the beginning of my story is that my wife knows that Corey's Burgers closed down, is no longer in business, right? But she doesn't know that I don't know that. It's like, now she goes, your whole story is probably bullshit. He's all, you apply this model, and I think this is the difference between the people with no internal dialogue. It's like, once you realize that there is fuckery, it's like, well, now I have to question everything that you're telling me. COVID vaccine.
Everything. Lockdowns. You said if we gave you more money, Iraq the kids would get smarter.
Yes.
All right. So here is the book Crossfire explaining why Kennedy was killed.
Now, why would they want to get rid of the chief executive? Because John F. Kennedy was shaking up the status quo. To begin with, he forced the steel manufacturers to roll back their price increases that they promised they were not going to do, and they did anyway. And he went on television and said, this is not right. And the public got with him, and they forced the steel manufacturers to roll back their prices. His brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, was prosecuting organized crime as never before or since. President Kennedy also was trying to put a stop to the CIA and the military making raids on Cuba. In fact, in the spring of 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff approved a plan called Operation Northwoods. And this horrendous plan called for assassinating American citizens in some of our cities, setting off bombs in major American cities, hijacking planes and ships, and blaming it all on Castro so they could stir up support for another invasion of Cuba. Kennedy and Khrushchev were actually working to try to end the Cold War, which did not set well with the military bases in either country. Kennedy may have also sealed his fate when he talked about doing away with the oil depletion allowance, which was the bedrock of Texas oil money. Got all the oil and gas people mad at him. The mafia's mad at him. The military's mad at him. And then in the summer of 1963, he ordered $4.2 billion of interest-free money issued through the Treasury Department, not the interest-bearing Federal Reserve System. Thus becoming the second president in American history to try to issue money that was free of interest from the international bankers. The first president being Abraham Lincoln, who printed his own greenbacks to finance the war between states. And I, for one, do not feel like that it was just sheer coincidence that both of those presidents were shot in the head in public.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
One thing that definitely changed with the death of John F. Kennedy was our involvement in Vietnam. So Kennedy was going to disengage us from Vietnam. No Vietnam War. Just 3 days after his assassination, then President Lyndon Johnson issued this National Security Action Memorandum number 273, saying we're not going to drop the financial or the military aid to South Vietnam. So in other words, this stopped these pullout orders. The most fascinating thing appears here in this document, which was taken from the LBJ Library in Austin, Texas. This is the draft of Johnson's National Security Action Memorandum 273, which blocked Kennedy's pullout order and set us on a course for full-time involvement in Vietnam. And what you notice is that this draft was written on November the 21st, 1963, the day before Kennedy went to Dallas and was assassinated.
How do you like that? Written the day before. Denying the pullout order that Kennedy had ordered was written the day before he was killed.
The one thing I think they left off that list, although I agree with you, now that the more that we've talked about this over the last week, is that I think there was just so many things that are like, all right, he's pissed off so many people.
Yeah, he's got to go.
He's got to go. But he did miss out that...
He's asking for it.
That the... have you heard of the Dimona power plant?
No.
The Dimona power plant was smuggling enriched uranium to Israel at that time. Israel, still to this day, but back then was very integrated into our government. This is like the whole Zionist argument that you hear about. Mm-hmm. And if you think this is a conspiracy theory... Time Magazine did a giant article on this. I'm saying like, we got a problem here. Like they're smuggling enriched uranium out to Israel, and Kennedy put a stop to that, and it was on record saying like, we can't trust these people, Israel, at the point. Like we can't trust these people. We can't have them. So there is also another working theory that the Mossad out of Israel said like, he's got to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because they were developing a nuclear weapons program.
He was literally asking for it. If you piss off that many different groups, you're going to get it. And let that be a lesson to anyone who thinks that they're going to reform the system. So, not on our watch.
So I found something pretty interesting because there wasn't one shooter, but who, like if you are a wild conspiracy theorist, what is generally understood as the guy who pulled the trigger? Do you know the name?
Woody Harrelson's dad?
No.
No, there's a name. You're saying not Lee Harvey Oswald, the
Jack Valente.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jack Valente.
He was
CIA
on the grassy knoll.
Yeah, it was all as the more I read into it, Jack Valente was considered to be CIA, the guy working on the grassy knoll. There were several rifles, including the hobos that we talked about, that were taken apart, shoved to other guys. You know what I mean? And everyone, and then arrested, let go promptly. And then you do some digging on Jack Valente. Do you want to guess who, because who became president afterwards was Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson, who his main political advisor was?
Who, Johnson's?
Yeah.
I can't guess, no.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It rhymes with Jack Valente.
Was it Jack Valente?
Jack Valente.
Nice.
Yes. And at that time, Johnson was on Air Force One, and they have like press on there. There was an Air Force One back then. And
so the guy that actually killed Kennedy was also
Lyndon B. Johnson's
one political
of his main
advisor,
confidants and political advisors, and he was on.
It seems a little too.
And short, unless it's two guys with the same name. And there's press on record saying, because they're on Air Force One, because they're on this press tour, like he just became president, and they're on record saying like it's generally understood if you want to talk to Johnson, it has to go through Jack Valente. I don't really know like where he came from or like what his background is or whatever, but that's definitely the guy. He filtered everything that went through Johnson. Did a dig on Jack Valente.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really interesting. He then became head of the what's it called? The RIAA, which was the Recording Industry Association of America. So he was the president of just everything audio.
You know,
all records being put out.
Really?
Yeah. And then this is because now we're tying it into my lifetime. He was the guy that one of the guys. Do you remember Tipper Gore?
Please lead to Tom Cochran on this.
Go. You just buckle up there, Buster Brown. We're almost there. Remember Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, and the PMRC?
Yeah.
Parents Music Resource Center?
Yeah.
Jack Valente is the guy that started the PMRC.
Interesting.
Yes.
I was, at first glance.
So the same guy that fucking shot Kennedy was also trying to ban metal albums I was trying to buy in the 80s.
What a
dick. This is why my parents would like buy the fucking Slayer album that I wanted because it had a stupid sticker on it.
I fucking hate that Jack Valente.
So I'm saying it affects us too. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, because not only did he create a coup against our government, but he also banned your favorite music. God, what an asshole. I was going to say, my initial thought is that there's just no way, right?
Yeah.
Why would the guy that was also this higher up, this connected political advisor to Johnson, risk being the one pulling the trigger?
Well, this
right?
was.
But hold on.
Okay.
I don't need you to answer it for me. It was rhetorical.
How was your day?
question.
It's fucking rhetorical. I don't want to know how your day went.
But we also asked that same question, like, how could so many people keep things a secret?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you eliminate the number of people that need to keep it a secret, and Jack Valente happened to be a fucking deadeye shot, then he should take the shot so that it's just one less person to have to off down the road.
You also have to, according to a couple different podcasts I listen to, we have to take into account that the way that we benefit from technology and archiving that we have available, like for anyone right now, which was not available in 1963. Yeah,
there was no such thing.
You read the newspaper, you're like, yeah, that's what happened. We should go to Vietnam or whatever it is. Like, oh, it looks like.
Well, there weren't cameras on the streets.
Yeah,
there wasn't
no technology.
Nobody had cell phones.
Yeah, we didn't have the system of archiving that we have right now. We didn't have the communication. We didn't have.
We had the.
We definitely didn't have a free press.
We had the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right, which is good.
It was great. Yeah, but I thumbed back through
multiple book reports.
Totally.
So now we have this very bizarre kind of perspective of hindsight with all this technology where we can go back and look at all these things. We can see that Saddam didn't have WMDs, that, we were lied into Vietnam, we were lied into Syria, we were lied into Yemen. There's like a variety of questions to be asked about 9/11, a variety of questions to be asked about JFK. And almost like every historical event that we have. It's pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
All around the world.